Enough is enough. We see enough meltdowns now, 1 or 2 a week by Trump, temper tantrums. This one was just a little more formal. He was in the White House. As she left the room with the fellow Democrats, his comment was, hey, see you at the polls.
Yep.
You might as well have a bunch of punk. Forget the protocol of decency, and you look at Washington with the pillars and just the history of, we would hope, diplomacy and so forth. Take it down to the most base, stupid level of interaction. Did I not hear Chuck just say we didn't have dialogue?
We said it was a diatribe.
It was a diatribe. That's where our politics are today.
Yep. Well, Steny Hoyer commented on this as well. This runs just a little over a minute, so take a listen to what Steny Hoyer had to say about this.
Just briefly, you're going to hear the president say we walked out. We were offended deeply by his treatment of the Speaker of the House of Representatives. The president, in my view, has created a crisis in the Middle East, a crisis that undermines the world's confidence in America. This crisis required a rational, reasonable discussion between those of us who have been elected by the American people to set policy. Unfortunately, the meeting deteriorated into a diatribe, as Leader Schumer has said, and a very offensive accusations being made by the President of the United States. I have served with 6 presidents. I have been in many, many, many meetings like this. Never have I seen a president treat so disrespectfully a co-equal branch of the government of the United States.
Wow, that's saying a lot, because Hoyer's been around since the Reagan administration.
I think the word he used that's so poignant is deteriorated.
Yeah.
Things have deteriorated. Our democracy, at the level of human discourse, political discourse, it's all deteriorating, and it's getting worse and worse. The bullying's up, the amount of shootings and road rages. Everything is going to hell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's what is happening today as the sun shines on this nice fall day, and you got your football tickets, folks, for the weekend, and everything looks like another fall. It's not.
Nope. I have one more clip. This is Pelosi. I believe Schumer and Hoyer chime in as well. But Nancy Pelosi reiterates that Donald Trump was shaken up after he had heard that the House voted this resolution 354-60. So here's Pelosi's comment on that. This runs about a minute 30.
I just want to say this other thing, and that is, I think the president was very shaken up by the fact that 354. I have to make sure I had the number correct. And that means a big majority of the Republicans voted.
194 Republicans, 60 voted against a resolution which said the president's decision was wrong and dangerous and lacking in giving our allies confidence that we would stick with them in time of trouble.
And one point I want to make that I hadn't made a moment ago. So Leader McConnell said he thought the president's decision was wrong. He said it in strong terms. I beseech Leader McConnell to put the same resolution that passed the House on the floor of the Senate. It's a bipartisan resolution sponsored by Senator Menendez, a Democrat, and the senator from Indiana, Young, a Republican. And we urge Leader McConnell not just to condemn the president, but put this resolution on the floor. Because the safety of America, the safety of the Kurds are in the hands of one person, President Trump. And the best way to pressure him is a strong bipartisan resolution such as passed the House to undo the damage he has done.
Thank you.
Go ahead,
What we witnessed on the part of the president was a meltdown. Sad to say.
Yeah, sad to say. But this is normal. This is apparently the new normal for us, isn't it, Jack?
It is.
It's scary. It's really scary. Let me go a little bit further down in this story from NBC News. The president, by withdrawing U.S. troops from the region to clear the way for a Turkish military operation, has given Moscow an opportunity in Syria. This is according to Pelosi, adding that the Russians were also beneficiaries of the United States withholding assistance to Ukraine, an allegation at the heart of the House Democrats' impeachment inquiry. So, yeah, she ain't backing down from Trump. Not even close. So then Trump released a series of photos from the meeting Wednesday and called her, quote, Nervous Nancy. Here's what he wrote on Twitter. Nervous Nancy's unhinged meltdown. Have you ever seen projection like this from a sitting U.S. president? That's all it is. It's projection. It's crazy. It's just unbelievable. I don't even know where to begin at this point. So here's what Nancy did. When she saw that photo, she put it as the banner on her Twitter account. Oh, good Lord. This is just...
Do you realize just how dangerous it is?
It's insanity.
When you can't sit down with... I mean, this wasn't just an off-the-cuff meeting. This was in the White House around the big table.
Yeah.
Where men of some substance have stood with both hands on the desk worrying about the missile crisis in Cuba, worrying about the poverty. And I remember Johnson with his glasses talking about the war on poverty, where there has been people of some gravitas. And now we have an office that just cleaned out the fast food boxes that were given to the Olympic people, an office where who was the guy who put his feet up on the desk and threw insults left and right, and now we can't even talk civilly in that office. Those waves ripple down through the fabric of this country.
They do. Well, I've got this. I have this from The Guardian. If you think that Trump was unhinged with his comments to Pelosi, have you seen the letter that he wrote to Erdogan? This is from The Guardian. This is Julian Borger along with Vivian Ho reporting. This is dated October 17th. Donald Trump warned his counterpart, President Erdogan of Turkey, quote, "Don't be a fool," end of quote, and said history risked branding him a devil in an extraordinary letter sent the day Turkey launched its incursion into northeastern Syria. The letter, first obtained by a Fox Business reporter, was shorn of diplomatic niceties and began with an outright threat. And we've got the full letter here. It's dated October 9th. It's on White House stationery. It's addressed to His Excellency Recep Tayyip Erdogan, President of the Republic of Turkey, Ankara. Dear Mr. President, let's work out a good deal. You don't want to be responsible for slaughtering thousands of people, and I don't want to be responsible for destroying the Turkish economy, and I will. I've already given you a little sample with respect to Pastor Brunson. I have worked hard to solve some of your problems. Don't let the world down. You can make a great deal. General Maslam is willing to negotiate with you, and he is willing to make concessions that they would never have made in the past. I am confidentially enclosing a copy of his letter to me, just received. History will look upon you favorably if you get this done the right and humane way. It will look upon you forever as the devil if good things don't happen. Don't be a tough guy. Don't be a fool. I will call you later. Sincerely, Donald Trump.
What a punk.
International and domestic reaction was, for the most part, incredulous. Turkish presidential sources told the BBC on Thursday that Erdogan, quote, received the letter, thoroughly rejected it, and put it in the bin, end of quote. There was no immediate comment from Turkish officials on the BBC report. The Kremlin questioned the letter's tone. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters on a conference call, quote, "You don't often encounter such language in correspondence between heads of state. It's a highly unusual letter." End of quote. In the U.S., many at first questioned the letter's legitimacy. Some called it a joke and an embarrassment. Democratic Congressman Mike Quigley said to CNN, quote, "I actually thought it was a prank, a joke, that it couldn't possibly come from the Oval Office. It sounds all the world like the President of the United States, in some sort of momentary lapse, just dictated angrily whatever was on the top of his head." End of quote. Quigley, a member of the House Intelligence Committee, continued, quote, For him to write this and to also say that it doesn't affect us is ignorance at the highest level. End of quote. That's a sitting U.S. congressman basically calling Trump an ignorant fool. Unbelievable. And by the way, Trump, at that meeting we just talked about, handed out copies of that letter to Steny Hoyer, to Chuck Schumer, to Nancy Pelosi. This is just unbelievable.
Well,
And here's the thing. He said, General Maslam is willing to negotiate with you. Here's a copy of the letter that he sent to me. So Ned Price, a former CIA officer and National Security Council spokesman, said, quote, these words on White House stationery should embarrass all Americans, but Trump's confidential enclosure of the SDF commander's letter will give our allies even less reason to trust America. How much NATO correspondence has been forwarded to Putin? End of quote. And that's something that we really need to think about. If this idiot sent this letter to Erdogan from the Kurdish general, what the hell? What's going to be next? I just don't know.
What have we seen in just this show alone? The comments of Bernie being attributed to or Warren taking those comments. We see a letter written on a 7th grade street fight level.
7th grade? That's more like 2nd.
I know that there's a lot of joy and entertainment in listing these travesties, Darren. But what's our answer going to be? Can we turn some of our focus on what could be the offset of Donald Trump? There's an article in Slate magazine this morning that Trump's attempt to land the G7 on his property, his personal property, for financial gain, I think is at the Doral?
The Doral, yes.
Okay. Is in and of itself worthy of impeachment.
Yeah.
All right. Why do I say that? When we just went through phony letters and all this other idiocy and insults in the White House, why did we go on? Because what happens is that what would have been in a normal presidency an impeachable offense that would have looked impeachable, after a while, like this thing in Doral, that's minimized to nothing.
Of course.
Pretty soon everything is minimized to nothing.
It's a nothing burger, or in Trump's case, a nothing burger.
We become, and I don't know if the word's desensitized, but when you get punched in the face by George Foreman for 6 months, and somebody comes with a punch that in the past histories of presidents would have been a knockout punch, they don't mean a thing.
No.
And the more he gets away with. So what are we going to do? What hope do we have to extend out to our people in New Mexico, down in Richmond, Virginia? What are we going to say this morning, Darren? I've got some things.
Yeah.
I really do. I say that in in Iowa, right now, Trump is losing ground. That's a kickoff state.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I would urge Democrats to stay on their impeachment track. But more importantly, I'd urge people to realize the primary that's going on right now, the debate that we just had, of which I think Bernie kicked butt, of which his words were misattributed. We have to look for the best and most viable candidate. Mm-hmm. Trump beats both Warren and Biden in the poll in Iowa right now. Yeah. Are we going to see the same shenanigans? Are we going to see... there's an article, I don't know if you have it up there, called The Miseducation of Pete. It's called The Miseducation of Mean Pete.
No, I do not have that.
Well, maybe you can entertain the folks while I looked it up, because what it proves to me is that the establishment is working overtime to get us another punching bag candidate, stuff him down our throat, and then Trump beat his butt. Now, that scenario I am worried about.
And as you mentioned the word Pete, or the name Pete, you mean Mayor Pete Buttigieg. So while you look that up, I've got this story. This is by Heather Vogel, writing for Huffington Post. The article was actually published by ProPublica. Folks, this you better pay attention to. This is dated October 16th. Documents obtained by ProPublica show stark differences in how Donald Trump's businesses reported some expenses, profits, and occupancy figures for 2 Manhattan buildings, giving a lender different figures than they provided to New York City tax authorities. The discrepancies made the buildings appear